The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it, Roadshow Thursday. It's Hail Varsity Radio here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate, quarter of 9th and P. I always love the saying Uncle Nate used to talk about, get them fed and watered. You can get fed, you can get watered at the Single Barrel. Incredible steaks, chops, breakfast buffet daily. And behind me, if you're watching the stream, Hail Varsity YouTube channel, knocking on wood, that's where all the whiskeys are kept, or I should say the reserves are kept. So you are invited down. We're here, home football Thursdays. Excited to hope and see you out here at the Single Barrel in downtown Lincoln. Back here for game day Saturdays. This Saturday, 3 to 5 ahead of Northern Illinois. Can get in and join us today here at Hail Varsity at 489-1240, 489-1240, or 1-800-825-5865. And we got all sorts of comments coming in. Matthew's wondering when I'm going to be at Cunningham's on the Lake again. I don't know if Junior is going to play baseball out that direction in the near future. If so, we will get the hall pass from Doug Duda to get out there. Love Duda and the great folks at Kearney and Hastings and the Superstation. The answer is I don't know, Matthew. Rhett chimes in, ready for a win. He's back for more. Mike is saying something about Matthew's comment. I'm going to play Randy Quaid's part in Major League 2 for the season, I think. I have not really seen Major League 2 in a long time. Quite frankly, it shouldn't have been made. Major League 3 shouldn't have been made. Major League is where you should have stopped. They didn't, and it's quite unfortunate. Elijah, how you doing today?
What's the thing with bad sequels, Schmidt, is you can just pretend they don't exist. I didn't know there was a Major League 3. I knew there was a Major League 2. I had never seen it. Major League 3, never even knew it was a thing.
Back in the minors, I believe.
So you can just pretend it never happened. In your own mind, it doesn't. It doesn't have to exist to you personally. So that's kind of how I feel about the first two games of the Husker season. Is they don't exist in my own mind, therefore they didn't happen.
I was gonna. It's not a lie if you believe it, right? The old Costanza line. Here's my question: Was Colorado was it a worse sequel? Was it a bad sequel to the opener with Minnesota? I mean, two ways of different losses, but kind of the same way. And you don't want the dirty trifecta. You don't want that to be an 0-3 deal come about midnight when you're looking for more beer Saturday night after Nebraska-Northern Illinois. I don't think there's going to be a horrid trilogy with Nebraska football in 2023. I do think it'll be a new movie, but maybe some of the same actors on Saturday. We do not know about Jeff Sims. We don't know his status. He's improving. We have plenty to hear from Matt Rhule about coming up here shortly. On the guest list today is Brandon Vogel from Counter Read. Vogues will check in with us in 15 minutes. Gary Barnett, he is not going to be wearing a hat or sunglasses when he talks to us. So Barney will join us at 5 o'clock. Joba Chamberlain scheduled at 5:25. And then Danny Burke will join us. Some gambling to get you into that Thursday night NFL action. Big ball game for the Vikings. They dropped kind of a head-scratcher, quite honestly, to Tampa. And the Philadelphia Eagles are trying to get back to the promised land. So some fun NFL. You have Minnesota tonight. You have Kansas City, Jacksonville on Sunday. Who do your Donks play?
They play the Commanders. I almost called them their old name, but I'm not going to do that. None in the swear jar for me today. Yeah. So that might be the most enthralling NFL action of the day on Sunday. Broncos, Commanders, get the popcorn ready. That's going to be a slugfest, to say the least. And I'm kidding.
17-14.
Yeah, 13-10 if we're lucky.
No, I get it. So we'll dive into some Nebraska, and you're welcome to join us. Also find us on the Twitter handle at H Varsity Radio for Hail Varsity Radio and the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Find Elijah on Twitter at Herbal Essence, at Schmidt_radio for me, Chris Schmidt. So we're here at the Single Barrel till 6. Come on by. I have koozies. I have more koozies. I have shades. So, yeah, I can get you all set up for some Saturday fun. So, listen, wanted to get a thought here on quarterback play, Elijah, because that is the topic du jour. I will get the steak of the day from our friends here at the Single Barrel to tell you all about, but there's not a bad choice.
If you're getting the steak of the day for yourself, you need to get me a steak as well for the steak and a beer bet last Thursday whenever we picked Lions and Chiefs, if you remember.
I think I picked the Buffs by a lot.
I wasn't talking about the Buffs. Wasn't talking about the Buffs because I think you picked Nebraska to win that one, and I picked CU to win that one.
I did.
And then I picked the Lions. So that
trying
could
to
be
revise history. I'm trying to revise history, and get out of the line of fire here but I would buy you a steak. We've split a steak here before.
We have. We did the Nebraska charcuterie
split a steak. We split their carnivore board, which was 2 steaks, like a pound of sausage, and a giant burger with some hollandaise sauce or some sort of flavored goodness that was outstanding. And the steak we had a ribeye and we had a strip.
Yep.
And they were absolutely thick.
Oh, don't forget.
They were O-line.
Don't forget.
They were O-line thick. And you and I just beat that thing down, waddled out, and it was all good to go.
Oh, I had the meat sweats. And because you're forgetting the 5th protein. There was the burger, there was the 2 steaks, there was the sausage, and then there was the brisket.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
What am I doing? Slap me. I forgot about the brisket here at the Single Barrel. It's fantastic too, but the steaks are incredible. They have some dirty rice here that is outstanding as a side if you don't want to go baked potato. And I'm usually a baked potato guy, but you absolutely have to go with the dirty rice here. They have peppercorn that makes Bill Dolman blush. So it's incredible. It's absolutely wonderful. So you are invited down to the Single Barrel Thursday nights, home football weeks, and for sure Saturdays as well. 3 to 5 this Saturday here with the Hail Varsity Weekend Edition. So quarterback is the topic. Can we have a couple of honest discussions about quarterback? You hope Sims is healthy. You hope, to follow up Mike Babcock's point yesterday, that you want to be able to see all 3. Not out of necessity, not because Sims can't go, or not because he gets pulled, or Harburg gets dinged or goes in and is ineffective, so you turn to Pretty. You don't want a quarterback merry-go-round. You want your starter to settle and be good. You want your backup Harburg to build off of some positive moments he had in Colorado. And then you want Pretty to be healthy and show off that arm talent that made him a 4-star and Florida State recruitable. Okay, all those things need to happen Saturday against a team that you're showing lots of respect to, but you should be able to line up and do what your identity is to this point, and that's be a physical football team that can run the football with some passing sprinkled in on your timetable versus trailing and having to throw, right? Mm-hmm. That's the key for Nebraska. But here's what I think we need to ask ourselves about Sims and Rhule and Satterfield and the Nebraska quarterback situation. This isn't to tear the Band-Aid off again on Casey Thompson. That's not where I'm going. I'm talking about going out and getting a guy like Sims. Why do you do it? It really wasn't questioned at the time as to, okay, here's a quarterback in the portal that has experience. Would you take him? And the answer was yes. But did you take him because you liked him above all else? Or did you take Sims because, all right, there's a chance Casey's dinged with the shoulder, and there's a chance Casey may leave anyway. There's also a chance from a fit standpoint, it's not as as perfect as we'd like for the offense you want to run. Okay, so there's that off to the side. What do we know about Haarberg and Pretty? We know that they got time, but we know that they've not played a lot of football. And we don't honestly know, since they've both been here, how much practice time they've gotten. We know they're getting reps. We know they're getting practice time, Elijah. We know they're getting better Monday through Thursday, at least with the opportunity to throw a football and run an offense. We know that is happening under Rhule. We don't know how much, how little, how often they got dusted off to actually go practice the offense when they were at Nebraska pre-Rhule. So they're kind of learning on the job, which is real right now. And you may have to turn to both of them, or for sure one of them if Sims can't go. We'll know tomorrow. We'll know at kickoff probably if Sims can go or not. But back to Sims, Nebraska needed another quarterback option. And Sims may have been the one they could get versus the one they wanted. So you kind of take what you can get. Maybe that's what this has turned into with the turnovers, the history, and a guy you're waiting to, A, get healthy, and B, bounce back, and B, as dynamic as he was coming out of Jacksonville in high school. It's not worked out that way in college, and you can always change and be better. But Nebraska, I think, just kind of took what they could get at this point is what it's looking like right now because of their quarterback room.
Yeah, and the quarterback room is the downfall of the entire team right now, and that's not to be mean. I'm not going to sugarcoat things, though, and whenever you look at the team as a whole, it comes down to the quarterback room. And one of the reasons why I think there's so many people calling for the backups, it reminds me of a situation that the Denver Broncos had back in, 2010?
Pick a year that Elway or Manning was not behind center.
I was going to go with the Kyle Orton year, whenever he was having problems, and the fans in Denver, who are they calling for? They're calling for Tim Tebow. And what the Broncos thought, the front office thought they had the worst backup quarterback in football in Tim Tebow. They did not want to play him. The coaching staff didn't want to play him. He was absolutely terrible in practice. He comes in, his first 9 games that he starts, he gets 8 wins. The dude came in, he was a gamer, he was a winner despite what they saw in practice. At practice, they thought he was awful, but they said, okay, it's not going to get much worse. Our playoff hopes are slim to none, and Slim's already left town. That's what it felt like. So they go, okay, fine, we're going to throw this guy Tim Tebow out there. The fans want to see him. We'll keep him happy. Whenever he goes and inevitably fails, we'll put Kyle Orton back into the game. What does Tim Tebow do? He just ends up winning. Was he good? No, but he was a winner. It's as simple as that. That's why fans want to see, I think, what Nebraska has in Heinrich Haarberg, because how many truly significant snaps has Heinrich Haarberg played at Nebraska? And when I say significant, I don't mean by sheer number. You say, oh, the guy's going to go play a significant number of snaps. And I'm not talking significant number. I'm talking in terms of game importance. How many significant snaps has Heinrich Haarberg played? You could argue a couple from the Colorado game. More realistically, you can argue it's a big fat goose egg because the game was pretty much out of hand by the time Haarberg came in against Colorado. And you don't know what you have whenever that guy is playing with the game on the line. Husker fans want to see Heinrich Haarberg, but at the same time, that's a risk to run if you're the Husker coaching staff because you've seen Jeff Sims. He's played a lot of snaps. He's played a lot of football. You know what he is right now? It's a guy who's going to turn the football over, and that kind of comes the question for this coaching staff and the team as a whole is what can you do to try to alleviate some of the pressure from Jeff Sims, make things a little bit easier for him so he's not forced to be doing too much, as Matt Rhule said today. We'll get some thoughts from Matt Rhule and why he thinks Jeff Sims has struggled to start the year. But that's what you've seen so far from Sims, and Husker fans want to see what the next guy can do because you just haven't seen him out in the field, and that's why I think Mike brought up a really good point yesterday on the show that I think this Husker coaching staff should have a plan for Heinrich Haarberg to get into the game on Saturday, regardless of what Jeff Sims' status is. If the third quarter rolls around, I think you should have some snaps planned in for Heinrich Haarberg to get some reps with the first-team offense to go up against that first-team Northern Illinois defense, because if it's a close game, you're going to sit back and say, well, Jeff Sims isn't doing enough. We need to figure out what we have in the next guy because it shouldn't be a close game against Northern Illinois. I know Matt Rhule was complimentary of them today, but let's face the facts. When Nebraska plays Northern Illinois, it should not be a close game. So if it's close, you get Heinrich Haarberg in. If it feels like Nebraska's starting to pull away, you put Heinrich Haarberg in before Northern Illinois, or you as the Huskers pull your first-team offense. Regardless, I think based on what we've seen so far from Sims this year, you need to get Heinrich Haarberg some significant snaps to get his feet wet in case you come to the possible eventuality that Heinrich Haarberg is going to be your guy against Michigan. That's a realistic possibility come 2 weeks from now.
Well, and Anonymous, you make good points. It'd be wonderful to put your name to things, but he says Nebraska's 25-51 in their last 76 games. Stop with the talk that Nebraska is going to impose their will on anybody. Well, if you look at the resources, the recruiting rankings, and you are right, Anonymous, on the field's a different story. Should is the operative word. Nebraska should be able to line up and run the football based on what you've seen the last 2 weeks. They've run it well enough. It'll be a challenge against Northern Illinois because their front is good, and you don't know what Northern Illinois team you're going to get. You got a 7-year quarterback that lost to a lower division team that's decent, and then you had an overtime thriller at Boston College. Boston College ain't great, but that's still a nice win for them. It's a win. Nebraska's searching that out. Brennan, from our friend from the Black Hills, chimes in on the mother of all yin-yang questions we'll get to in about 20 minutes. But he chimes in on Harburg here. Let's hope the Harburg experiment goes better than the Luke McCaffrey experiment if we go down that road. McCaffrey's doing great things as a slot receiver. If only he would have listened. Hail Varsity is live here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate. Home Football Thursdays. We invite you down. Great steaks and whiskey. Brandon Vogel on the way.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Just to be clear, Chris is to my right, and it is just a Diet Coke. It's not rum and Coke, not yet. We're back here at the Single Barrel. Love being here for the fall, for football. And we welcome in a guy who can fire up a steak at a high level. He's a 5-star steak guy, hunkered in his football office. It's Brandon Vogel from Counter Read, at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter. Vogues, how many meaningful snaps have you taken, brother? Elijah and I are trying to figure out what we've done collaboratively, and we're short. We're short for a Saturday start.
Yeah, I can contribute 0 meaningful snaps to that equation. So I don't know if that puts you guys over the top or not. I'm going to assume no. But yeah, in terms of playing in front of 80 plus thousand people, 0. I have 0 snaps to add to that conversation, unfortunately.
Any high school Al Bundy story time we can get on the
Well, those snaps were certainly meaningful to me, and I guess if we're including those from the mid 1990s, 1990s, I played a bunch of snaps then, but I'm not so sure how much it helps anybody now. But yeah, played 4 years of football, enjoyed it. Kind of didn't. Here's an old guy thought. I maybe didn't enjoy it enough because I didn't realize at 18 years old that you can keep like if I want to play a adult league baseball, I can do that tomorrow. If I want to play pickup basketball, I can do that tomorrow. You can't really play football without 50 plus people helping you do it. So underrated.
Brayden, how many fumbled shotgun snaps in your entire high school career?
Wow.
The same amount of shotgun snaps plus under center snaps for me, which would be 0. So
we're sure I fumbled.
I'm sure I fumbled somewhere along the way as a pass catcher, but none of them were snaps. So at least I've got that.
Brandon Vogel with us from Counter Read, counterread.com, at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter is where you find him. And I want to get a thought from you on just the last 2 weeks and applying it to Saturday. What do you think happens at quarterback for Nebraska? And is it dire or is it fixable? Have you assessed just where? Because I still think it's paramount to get to 6. I think that's got to happen. I'm not saying bad things happen if they don't, but let's just talk about the sanity of the state. You got to get to 6 this year, and you got to find someone behind center that gets it done. And it's not all on him, but he's helped.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Sims is able to go, he goes on Saturday, and I don't. From my perspective, I don't know if that's the wrong decision. Here's the thing, and I wrote about this a little bit today in our game preview on counterread.com. You could look at this and say, like, oh, this is the Jeff Sims you knew you were getting. Like, a lot of, he had a lot of turnovers at Georgia Tech. His passing numbers were not off the charts. We're not talking about Caleb Williams here. Rushing numbers good, which we've seen all of those things at Nebraska so far. That said, his passing numbers are so far below what you would even expect from him coming from Georgia Tech that, in my mind, it's extremely likely that the passing numbers are going to get better. Like, you would expect him to, he's played enough football at this point. You would expect him to end up around his career averages passing, which would still be a little bit below average. But the question I asked in that story that I wrote was, okay, if that's all you get, if you get a guy who maybe ranks 70th in passing, however you want to measure that, is that enough for Nebraska to win some games? Is it enough for Nebraska to win 6 out of its remaining 10 games? In my view, I think it probably is. So if Jeff Sims plays the majority of the season behind center at Nebraska from here on out, like, you'll have a couple of good games from him passing. You'll have a couple more maddening games, I think. But just given how low the bar is right now based on the first 2, like, he seems like a really, really good bet to improve as a passer, unless the receiving core, some other things just don't allow for that, which is possible. So for me, I tend to put my trust in the coaches who watch all of the practice snaps, watch everything. For Northern Illinois, it's a little bit of a different discussion. Like, I think you could win with Harburg or Purdy, and that's the most important thing. So we'll see where Sims is at health-wise, but I'm not at a point yet where I'm willing to put it, like, just all on him. Like, I think Nebraska could win games with him if he just plays to the level that he played at Georgia Tech.
And Brandon, what's interesting to me about playing to the level that he did at Georgia Tech is quarterbacking is not done in a vacuum with the offensive line, with your pass catching options. And that's kind of where I want to go with this in terms of, if we're assuming that Jeff Sims is a go for Saturday, couldn't you argue that a barometer for success for this Husker offense is not how well Jeff Sims plays, it's actually how little Jeff Sims airs the ball out? You got to expect that with what this coaching staff has preached through the offseason, what we've seen from this offense through 2 games, that they're going to want to try to run the ball early and often and try to limit what Jeff Sims has to do with the ball in his hand. So is that a barometer of achievement for this Husker offense on Saturday, just how little Jeff Sims actually has to throw the football?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that probably applies to the majority of the season remaining. Maybe you get in a game where you have to throw it 30 times with him. And we'll see how that goes. But to this point, I think he's only at, I'm forgetting the number off. His passing attempts aren't that high, even when you include sacks in there. So they've really been committed to what we know about how they want to play, and in my opinion right now, how they almost have to play, which is heavily reliant on the run. The good news, if you're a Nebraska fan, for Saturday, I think, is Northern Illinois may not be totally set up to stop that. It's not a group that challenges that idea on its face, or at least it hasn't through 2 games. So I expect Saturday to be pretty similar to last week, in that it seemed like everybody went into that game and being like, well, yeah, you just hand it off. You run it as much as you can. That's where I was at. And Nebraska had a little bit less success than I would have expected, but you look at the numbers at the end of the game, not bad. Here, I think they do it again. It's part of why I think, like, if they hold Sims out and go with one of the backups, you're not. It's not a 5-alarm fire, because that's the path. Like, you have more trust, or at least I have more trust in the run game at this point than I do the passing game. And some of that's due to Sims, but some of that's just due to what Nebraska has as a team as a whole.
Brandon Vogel with us here from Counter Read. We're here at the graduate, inside the graduate single barrel is where we're at Thursday nights here, home football week, Saturdays as well. Vogues, we look at Nebraska, and we'll hear it in next segment, but you got to catch Rhule and his post-practice.
Huh. It would appear we're having some connection issues with Schmidt out at the single barrel. Brandon, where do you think he was going with that question? You got to catch Matt Rhule.
I caught parts of it, so I'm not sure. I needed the help of, like, here's what he said. What do you think?
Yeah, and that's where I was wondering as well. I'm going through the cuts here, trying to be like, where would he have gone first?
Okay, there we go. There we go.
He's back. Schmidt,
we're back. We just had a little hiccup.
And you were right in the middle of asking a great question to Brandon about catching Matt Rhule, what he had to say today, and then you trailed off right before you said the most important part.
That is these two camps Rhule talked about. Guys that are new and are 0-2, guys that have been here doing time like Andy Dufresne and have not gone bowling. How do you manage that if you're Rhule? And he said, one game, one snap at a time, but it's a psyche question again for another week.
Yeah, it is. And I think kind of one snap, one game at a time is all you can do with it, because, for some of these young guys, a Cameron Linhart, let's say, wants to win as badly as any college football player out there, I presume, and has had some really good success in 2 games as a true freshman on the defensive line, which is remarkable. That said, he hasn't had to carry the weight that a Luke Reimer has of, like, and really in anybody who's been around for multiple years of, like, we put everything we have into this, and it wasn't enough over the past 2-3 years, however many you've been here. You've done it twice now this year, and it also hasn't quite been enough. So it's not like that load gets lighter, which is why I think Saturday's, really important. Northern Illinois they beat Boston College. They lost an FCS team. It's hard to know what to make of them. But we know, in terms of a program that is used to winning, and those are always dangerous in these type of games. So I look at Saturday as, Nebraska probably needs a proof of concept win, as much to bring those two groups together. Like, at that point, then maybe this is putting too much on one game, but maybe you don't have two factions. Maybe then everybody can come together and be like, well, we're 1-2. Let's see what we can do from here. Until you get there, though, it's easy to be somewhat divided because everybody's putting in a similar amount of work. It's just a matter of how much you've had to endure to this point.
Vogues, what's coming up with Counter Read, and where can folks find you here? About 20 seconds.
Yep. It's just at counterread.com is where you can find us and find the newsletters that we put out. Tomorrow, got a look around the Big Ten, plus a special focus on Nebraska, looking at the lines. So if you're interested in projections against the spread, you can go there for that.
Love it. Brandon Vogel with us at Brandon L. Vogel. Vogues, we'll talk Saturday. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity here at the Single Barrel. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, as we're here at the Single Barrel on Thursdays, home football weeks, and then Saturdays as well. You have plenty to get into from Matt Rhule. We'll get there in a moment. Gary Barnett coming up here in 20 minutes. And Joba Chamberlain also checks in about 5:25. We'll spend time with him. Can watch us here on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. So let's dive into Rhule here, Elijah. And you have the Sims update. He's progressing. Purdy's doing the same. And you have Teddy. Let's hear about Teddy. That's going to be key. Nebraska's O-line's been all right. It's different with Teddy in the ball game.
Yeah, he's getting. I mean, he's really rounding into shape. He's practicing well now. So I think you could see him this week potentially.
All right. So maybe, yay. Are you putting money down, even money that Teddy's in?
Oh, that didn't sound too resounding from me. I don't know. We feel good about where he is. We're hoping to see him. That's no. I'm not willing to put my money down just yet.
More from Rhule on the why, right? He's a big why guy. Why has Sims struggled?
I think Jeff is an excellent player, and I think his best football has not been seen yet. I think he probably's. I don't want to answer for him, but I would say I think he's probably just really wants to win and trying to do things to make us to win instead of just playing each play. And so that's really the whole message of our program is just really just to be in the moment and win the rep and play the play, and you're not going to win every play. And so unfortunately for us in the first two environments, some plays by a lot of different guys have gone from bad to almost catastrophic. And so we're learning those lessons the hard way. But yeah, I think Jeff deeply cares, and so because he cares so much, I think sometimes maybe he, like a lot of our guys on offense, are just pressing and trying to do a little too much instead of just letting the play come to them.
He's right. There's a handful of guys that are pressing, some old, some new, and that learning how to win aspect is very prominent with this program. Just not 2 games into the Rhule era. Cut 7 here on learning how to win, because that's the key right here.
When you talk about learning how to win, that's one of the great lessons of learning how to win is everyone has to just stay in their role and do their job at a really high level. And then when they have a chance to make a play. And so you can see it with Jeff at a high level because he's the quarterback, but I can see it all across the board. Because a lot of guys, I have a lot of older guys here that haven't won a ton of football games and they so desperately want to win, and so it's what we're working through right now.
So they are desperate, Elijah, and that's not a knock; it's a reality. They want to find a way to get into the win column and go beyond just 1 and build on that to 2 to 3 to kind of be what they're hoping to be. But there's always something that pops up with this program the last few years. And again, that's not on Rhule's tab. It's 2 games in, and that's how he's looking at it. But it is something that you got to really assess and spend time with. Just go play, right? Easier said than done. Just go play and just go play 1 snap at a time. That's boring, but it's true, and it's where this team's at right now.
Yeah, and part of that, to me, also comes down to knowing what you are as a football team and who you are as a football player. Knowing if you're doing too much in a time when you can't. Because a guy like Jeff Sims, him doing too much in a moment, if you replace him with Johnny Manziel, it's not Johnny Manziel doing too much because Johnny Manziel has the ability and he's back.
Johnny's making a play.
Johnny's making a play. Sims is doing too much.
A winning play.
That's the thing. And I think part of that comes down to knowing, and that's part of learning as the season goes on, learning who you are, knowing your place within an offense, within a defense, what have you. I don't want to single out Jeff Sims here because Matt Rhule made sure not to, and I think it is important to note that this is not limited to just Jeff Sims. It comes down to knowing who you are as a football player, too, and knowing your own personal limitations. Like, if Johnny Manziel drops a snap, he goes and scrambles around in the pocket, drops the ball, flings it up in the air, catches it himself, and finds a Texas A&M player in the back of the end zone for a touchdown against Bama. Whenever it happens to Jeff Sims has to know for him at that moment, with how good your defense is playing, the right play for you is to jump on that football and make sure nobody else can pick it up. It's not about making a play in that moment.
Throw it away.
There's differences in teams. There's differences in players. And I think that's part of the learning process this team is still a part of right now. Not just learning how to win, but also learning who you are as a football team.
Well, and you feel for the seniors, but you also feel for Sims because it's not been a great college career wins and losses wise. I mean, he's done some wow things. He's got all sorts of talent, but the main thing's kind of the main thing, and that's the turnovers that kill you. And that's been what he has been a part of now at two different stops. So let's get into the mood. I think I have a decent idea about what the mood of the team is. I know what the want of the team is, but the mood right now, Coach Rhule talked about that a little bit earlier.
There's a dichotomy here. There's two different, there's probably like two different groups, right? There's me who's sitting here like, man, we're 0-2. Okay, wow, we were so close to Minnesota. We should have won that game. Like, okay, we're close. Hey, Colorado, man, we just kind of let go of the rope a little bit in the third quarter, putting the ball on the ground uncharacteristically. Man, I probably didn't do a good enough job. Okay, let's just do this. It's just a process for me. It's very, like, methodical, right? And it's like, okay, fix this. Oh, that looks good. Let's do more of this. For a lot of the guys, it's like, man, 3 years of this, and they're hearing that probably out there a lot, right? And it's like, for me, it's 2 games. For them, it's 3 or 4 years, and so it feels hopeless. To me, it feels exciting, exhilarating. It's like, all right, man, we competed against Minnesota all the way to the very end. We let it go of it. Like, that was our fault. It wasn't like, hey, we got to go out and recruit some more. It's like, we're close, right? So that's the challenge. As I sit there in my office last night, it's 10 o'clock at night, or 9 o'clock at night, whatever it was. I'm sitting there kicking it with Giff or Nick, I have great older players here, and they want to win so much. And just, I'm talking to the younger players. It's just, they certainly feel, like I can just kind of go back and forth to work and listen to a little country music and not pay attention. They're hearing and seeing everything, and so it's affecting them, obviously. But it's affecting them because they care, and that's what I love about them. And so I'm just going to keep trying my best to help them.
Well, and there's that tough love help. So you're a quarterback. That's the word. You're a quarterback until you aren't our quarterback anymore, Jeff Sims. And to keep being the quarterback, it's take care of the football and make winning plays. And to your point, Elijah, it's, well, first and foremost, not fumbling. Second of all, not living to fight another down. And there's going to be this tug of war, too, between the anti-Satterfield crowd, early anyway, and the anti-Sims crowd. It'd be nice to see if Satterfield and Sims, A, gets healthy, but B, gets on the same page together where what's called is executed to what the coach and the offense think it can be. And
that's part of finding what your identity is offensively, is getting that connection between coordinator and quarterback, and between quarterback and receiver and quarterback and running back. All that is a part of developing identity. I don't think Nebraska has an identity yet, and it can be harder to go out and make winning plays whenever you don't know what the identity of your offense is, because part of winning is going out there and executing your part within an offense. And if you don't know what the offense is, it's kind of hard to know what a winning play truly can be. And I'm not trying to defend Jeff Sims here by any means, but that's a part of this equation.
Hail Varsity on the road here at the Single Barrel, live till 6. Hail Varsity continues.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Elijah's nodding at me like, old man, wake up. We are back for one final segment this hour.
You're sure
just getting I'm getting the Facebook post updated. We're here at the Single Barrel, 4 to 6. Down here, 9th and P. Incredible steaks, over 200 whiskeys to choose from.
And you're sure there's no whiskey in that cup right now?
No, it's just water.
Not
vodka.
Okay.
It's not gin. It's just water. Promise you. So, yeah, get down here for a steak tonight. Get down here for some steak and eggs Saturday before Nebraska-Northern Illinois. So there's more disrespect. I thought Dion was out of cards. He is not. Jay Norvell, former Nebraska assistant, and our friend Brennan from the Black Hills is like, would you rather see a Colorado loss or a Nebraska win if you had to choose? And as much as I want Colorado to end the season 2-10. Nebraska needs a win, man. Not that we cheer, but I need a Nebraska victory just for the fan base's sanity. But here's what Coach Norvell had to say during his coach's show about being an adult, and we'll hear Prime's response.
And I sat down with ESPN today, and I don't care if they hear it in Boulder. I told them I took my hat off and I took my glasses off, and I said, when I talk to grown-ups, I take my hat and my glasses off. That's what my mother taught me.
So that was a standing O in the bar in Fort Collins. That was a shot at Deion. Every post-game or pre-game, and Prime's got his shades on and his hat, and Jim McMahon also wore sunglasses at night and during the day because he had light sensitivity issues. I don't know if that's Prime's thing or not, or he just looks cool, but he's always wearing shades. Deion responded.
I'm minding my own business, watching some film, trying to get ready, trying to get out here and be the best coach I could be. And I look up and I read some bull junk that Dan said about us.
Talk to us.
Once again,
talk to us.
Why would you want to talk about us when we don't talk about nobody? All we do is go out here, work our butts off, and do our job on Saturday. Yes, but when they give us ammunition, they done messed around and made it what? It was just going to be a good game.
And made this
they done messed around and made it personal. It was going to be a great test, a battle of Colorado, but they done messed around and made it personal.
That's pretty good. They messed around and made it personal.
Here's the thing, Schmitty. From Jay Norvell's point of view, realistically, based on what we've seen...
What's he got to lose? It's a rivalry game, Elijah, and Deion's in Florida next year this time.
And what's Deion going to do regardless of if you say anything? He's going to find a way to get some bulletin board material and make it personal. That's who Deion is. Deion wants some extra motivation before every single game. So you might as well get a shot in. If he's going to make it personal anyway, you might as well get in a little shot there and just let you know, hey, you're going to make it personal, but I want you to know it's personal for me too.
No, it is, and it can be, and whatever it takes, right? Dr. Rob Zadiska this week told us about the time he talked about the pipeline cutters that Colorado brought with them. That was a little manufactured. Hail Varsity is on the road here at the Single Barrel. It is time for a steak and a drink. Come get fed and watered. We're hanging out till 6 tonight. As you can find us here, 9th and P. Hail Varsity continues, and we're presented by Currency.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you, it's Hour 2 at Hail Varsity Radio. We're on the road here at the Single Barrel, getting you ready for a football weekend in Lincoln. Back from Boulder, and we say hi to the Hall of Fame coach, Gary Barnett. Coach, we see each other about every 5 to 7 to 10 years in person. Whenever Nebraska's playing or you're on the road for radio, it was awesome to see you before kickoff last Saturday. How's your week been?
I came down with a little bug after the game, and actually I think it started Sunday night. We had a real cold, heavy rain, and we had a big event for our foundation, and I think I just caught a little cold. So I'm just now coming back. And my voice is somewhat normal, although a little deeper than normal. So it's been one of those weeks where I take NyQuil to go to sleep and DayQuil to get through the day. But I think I'm over that now and ready for the next episode of Prime Time Football.
Well, it is the next episode. He's done the morning talk shows again, and there's all sorts of buzz that continues with Colorado and the Buffs being 2-0 up to number 18 in the country. What did you think of the Nebraska-Colorado game? Colorado ended up putting a hurting on the Big Red. It was tight until about the 4-minute mark in that third quarter, Nebraska actually got on the board 13-7, and then the answer drive by Shedeur and company to put it back up to 20-7.
Yeah, you were talking about him being on the morning show. He's on 60 Minutes Sunday, and we've got both game day and big noon on campus on Saturday, and we don't have a game till 8 o'clock at night. So it just keeps going. I thought Nebraska had a really good defensive plan for us. They dropped 8 and they needed to drop 8. They brought 6 and forced our running back to block a bigger defender, and he ran over Dylan Edwards several times. He got sacks. And then finally CU put a bigger back in so that they could protect the quarterback. And I just thought they had a really good defensive plan and caused Colorado to have to really work. And had it not been for the turnovers that Nebraska committed, which I think we caused one, but the other 2 were self-inflicted, that game goes right down to the wire, in my opinion, because we had trouble getting it figured out. Once we got it figured out, we were okay, but then we could move the ball. But I thought Nebraska had really a good tackling team. Again, I thought they had a really good plan on defense. Offensively, they had 2 long runs. They had a 57-yarder and a 44-yarder or something like that. And so, they can do it. It's just that they keep turning the ball over, and that's really what's keeping them from probably being 2-0 right now. So,
Gary Barnett,
I don't know if they can fix that, Chris.
Well,
but,
that's the question, Coach. What do you do? I mean, as offensive coordinator, as head coach, that's the next question. Is if Sims is healthy, he's the quarterback, and there's clamoring already for the backup or beyond. How long do you let a kid go to try and snap out of it? And then how long do you wait to make a change if there's still persistent turnovers? I mean, there's no right answer other than, what's best for the team. Have you ever had to deal with anything like that?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. You always have this. But in your case, you may have a backup. In our case, as you saw, we don't have a backup. And so we got Shedeur, and Shedeur's going to be there until he's not. But you guys at least had choices, and we don't have those choices. So, you can change your game plan a little bit. He seems to struggle with the throws from the pocket. He's certainly got a good enough arm to be on the run, or bootleg, and things like that. And you can create a scheme in which you can do that and get him throw the ball to the outside thirds. They're going to defend it eventually, but the one thing you have when you're moving on the move and you're going to the outside thirds is you've got a chance for him to run the football. In college, the ball's on the hash mark 76% of the time, so 3 out of every 4 plays, you have a wide side of the field to try to throw the ball into, and that it's also a hard thing to defend, the wide side of the field. So, you can do it. You hate to throw everything out the window after a full month of camp and a spring ball and that sort of stuff. And it takes a lot of guts to do it. But if you're just dead set on having him be your quarterback, you got to find ways that you got to throw the football. You have to in these, but you got to find a way to do it so that you eliminate the risk. And that's the number one way, is to put him on the run, bootleg him, counter bootleg him. Don't give him complicated throws. And I sure as heck would struggle letting him throw the ball over the middle of the field. So that's just as I watch him, Chris.
Mm-hmm. Coach Gary Barnett with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Offensively, there's been some frustration by the fan base with Satterfield, and I don't know if what he wants to do is being asked of his quarterback that can't do it, or or what the situation is, because you've had spring, you've had summer, you've had fall camp, and you have right now you're in season with, just some really questionable decision making. And Nebraska's not thrown Sims under the bus. They've taken accountability between different players and the coaches saying, it's our job to do better. But as a whole, when you look at the Nebraska offense, do you see some upside? Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel where, okay, this is what Nebraska wants to do? They could be able to do that.
Well, I think you can run the football. I think both those backs are good players. I think utilizing Sims on the run, in the run game, I don't know that you ran a belly option against us. I don't recall calling it, but that helps. You've got big receivers and strong receivers, but it's not a matter of you have big play making receivers, and so. But a lot of people are in that position, and so you just got to make the most of it. And I think you have to avoid trying to put 10 pounds of what into a 4-pound bag, and that's the struggle. Is at what point do you realize you can't put all that in that bag? So you got to go in a little bit different direction.
Coach Gary Barnett with us. Coach, have you made much of the midfield hubbub?
You know what? I didn't even know it happened. We've never had a big thing about the Buffalo in the middle. In fact, I think the Buffalo's new. So I didn't even notice anything happen at the game. Never until I heard it in the post game. I didn't pay any attention to it. I remember we went down to Florida State, and we had one guy go out and do something in the middle of the Seminole, and all of a sudden we had about 30 players surrounding us. And I remember going inside, and I said, I'm not going to say his name, and I said, let me tell you what, you better play your butt off, because you just caused one heck of a fracas out there, and you made them angry, and the last thing we need is Florida State mad at us. So, but I didn't even notice it, tell you the truth, and I haven't heard it except what was said on the press, on the press conference. So, you're looking for things if that's a big deal.
Well, that's kind of the response back here. Coach, got to ask you a little bit here about Colorado State. How's the week been? What's that rivalry like? What's it like going from Nebraska to Colorado State?
I'm really intrigued to watch our response to this game, Chris, because every one of our players are from somewhere else and they're not from Colorado. They have no idea about this rivalry, even though Shadur and Shiloh visited there when Mike Bobo was the head coach. If Colorado doesn't really respect this football team, and there's a way that can happen when you're 22-point favorites. If they don't really respect this team is good enough to really cause you problems. They had a week off. They benched their quarterback. They're going to play a different guy. They have players. Jay Norvell's done a really nice job. He's a good coach, and he's in the right place, and he's doing it the right way. They've struggled last year, but I don't know. Every game for me is a new adventure with this football team. And like I've said, I think I said it to you, I can tell you when my team is ready, but I can't tell you when somebody else's is ready. And so it's a new adventure for me every time I go to practice. So all I can say is I just know that coaching that game as long as I did, that if you want to win by 22, you better respect the snot out of those guys and play your best, because this is not a 22-point victory just walking into the field and throwing your jerseys out on the field. So, it's an 8 o'clock game. The good news is everybody's going to get to watch our game. And so if you haven't seen Colorado, you're on the East Coast. If you can stay up that late, you're going to get a chance to see Colorado. So we're going to have a big, big audience Saturday night. So that's the good side. The downside is it's 8:00 at night, but that doesn't make you kids, at all.
Mm-hmm. What'd you think of the number that Nebraska-Colorado pulled? Just a couple 100,000 shy of Bama, Texas, over that 8 million number.
Well, that's 2 weeks in a row we've had those kind of numbers. We've had the second highest rated game, and so it just it speaks to the appeal that Colorado has, but I think even more so it's Deion Sanders and what's happened here in the first two games. And really, even the first game goes back to what's happened over the last 9 months and the star power that this guy has. And, I don't even know if you knew all the rappers and the stars that were at the game and NFL stars. And, I mean, we had probably 15 to 17 celebrities in the stands there. And so it's just attracting a huge audience right now.
So Snoop, T.O., Irvin, who am I missing? Wu-Tang?
Wu-Tang, Sap.
Oh, Warren was there, huh?
Yeah, Wu-Tang, which is some rap group from your days, I think.
Well, it's on your playlist, Coach. It's okay.
Yeah. So, there was Drake.
Oh, wow.
Dr. Dre. They were all there. So, what the heck? We had and I don't know how many were on the sideline, but there were a number.
Let's get into the quick rapid fire. Coach Bielema, I'm sure, is a tad annoyed that Big Noon is not in Champaign this weekend, but they're staying in Boulder. That being said, Penn State travels to Illinois. Illinois got rocked by a really good Kansas team, and here comes Penn State, minus 14.5.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Kansas is good, though. That is a good football team, and I think 14.5 is about right. I think Penn State will probably beat them by at least that much.
How about Minnesota at North Carolina, minus 7.5? Gophers aren't flashy, but, PJ has pretty good front seven. I know North Carolina's pretty explosive. Big rivalry win to open the year.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how to read that. North Carolina, barely beats App State. I mean, it's a fight, but App State's that team you don't want to play. You don't want to play App State. Don't put them on the schedule, please. I think this is going to be an intriguing game to watch. Mm-hmm. And I think 7.5 is about right. I think North Carolina wins by about a touchdown. And so I think it's a tough call if you're going to bet the line, because I think that's about right. And to give Minnesota 8 points, I think that's a tough decision to make right there, because I think that's right on it.
Does Michigan State play ticked off, or does Washington drop a nuke? I mean, what a week it's been in East Lansing.
Washington can drop a nuke, whether they're mad or unmad or what. They're so good. They drop a nuke walking out on the field. But Michigan State's, that's a screwed up situation right now, and just depends how personally that team takes what's happening. And but it's a mess. Washington's going to win the game. 16 is probably about right. I can see them winning by 3 touchdowns. But Washington's really, really good. That coordinator, Grubb, is just dynamite, man. He is one of the best play callers I've seen.
Tennessee, are they on upset alert down in the swamp?
Oh, you'd like to hope so, because this has always been such a big game. But it's like an afterthought this week, because Florida's playing so bad. Tennessee hasn't lived up to its hype. I think Tennessee wins the game. A 6.5-point favorite. I think they're a 14-point winner.
Gary Barnett. Coach, enjoy prime time again. Thanks for a few minutes today. Good talking some ball with you.
All right, Chris. Great being with you. Thanks.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Good stuff from Coach Barnett. Hail Varsity Radio Roadshow here at the Single Barrel. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We welcome in Husker Hall of Famer and longtime Major League Baseball vet, World Series champ Joba Chamberlain kicks it with us as he's gearing up for some postseason baseball. And, of course, it is football season. Joba, good to see you, man. How you doing?
Just hanging in there. It's one of those things we're getting down to the point where it's, there's so many sports and everything on now, and just excited about, all things that are going on.
How excited are you about a former Yankee that's got the sports world by storm? Where do you stand on Coach Prime, man? You've hung out with everybody, right? I should say everybody's hung out with you. Let me rephrase that. McConaughey, Roger, Chuck. I mean, you got a good circle of dudes. You hung out with Prime. Has Prime hung out with Joba?
Yeah, we have before, and indirectly, it obviously wasn't us together, but I mean, just he's one of those things that just exudes what he is, and I think that is just, reading the stories and obviously born a Braves fan, and obviously him going over there and doing the things that he did with the Braves and listening to stories about, just him being a teammate, and he treated me great. Don't get me wrong. But I just, everything that I've heard from his teammates prior, that he was just, an awesome dude to play with and to be around. And, obviously we've seen some different things, but it's, you can't take anything away from him. That's for dang sure.
Well, it's another enemy made for rivalry week part 2 with Colorado State. That's been a talking point. His kids are chiming in and chirping in. And Joba, you're a big Nebraska fan. What do you make of the year so far?
You know what? I mean, it's a lot to be said, and I think obviously we've definitely understand what it's going to go and what it's going to be. And Rhule's he's came out and said, this is going to take time, and the understanding of what it is, and obviously, do I think we have the right guy at the helm? 100%, but also we can't expect everything to turn around immediately. Like it's going to take time. We're going to have to be patient. And as we all know, we are very patient people when it comes to Husker football. So we have to, just, take a deep breath and get back to work. And, I think we have the right people at the helm to get this thing turned around for sure.
Joba, you're a guy that played the sport of baseball. What I know about baseball is, among all the sports you play, it might have the biggest mental aspect, whether you're on the mound, whether you're in the batter's box, whether you're playing the hot corner. It doesn't really matter. The mental aspect is such a huge part of baseball. Whenever you look at Jeff Sims, do you see a guy that's struggling mentally at the quarterback spot at Nebraska, from the drop snaps in the shotgun formation to missing his guys late, locking in on a guy? Do you see a guy that might maybe struggling with the mental side of the game to football?
I just think coming into it, it's obviously a lot to be expected, coming into that role. But also, too, it's like the hardest thing, and the thing about baseball, which is great, but it's also miserable, is we're set up to fail. But I get the opportunity to turn around the next day to get after it. He has to sit on it for a week. Mm. And, and I think that's the hard part, especially, and let's be honest, we're talking about young men. We're not talking about grown adults doing things. Like, we're talking about young men, and the understanding of what it is and what's the burden on his shoulders, not only, coming into a program that's obviously with a new coach and everything and that, but it's also to know that you're the starting quarterback for Nebraska with the storied tradition that it has. I don't necessarily think it's him not handling it or not doing whatever. It's just he has to come into his own, and obviously we all know he's better than what he's shown, and it's, hopefully he can get healthy and get his legs under him, and he can come out and show what he can do.
Joba Chamberlain with us, Hail Varsity Radio, here at the Single Barrel, as we're here on Home Football Thursdays and Home Football Saturdays. Joba, and had a listener, Tim, going to put this graphic up when it comes to learning through losing. Does it have a shelf life? Man, it makes you so hungry if you fall short to go back and get it done. You guys experienced that in the postseason, and then obviously got over the top and won that World Series. You got past some teams that had traditionally been pretty big time in the Big 12, and you guys won Big 12 championships. So you've had to climb the ladder, and you see it in sports. I think of Jordan and the Bulls, right? Finally getting by the Pistons, at least for my era. And Nebraska's still been kind of stuck in that rut. Touch on that topic for a moment here, trying to exercise the demon of a loss. And for Nebraska, it's been this way, but it's not the same because it's a new regime.
Yeah, and I think there's some validity to that in the shelf life, but Miles is like, how long do you allow that to be on the shelf? Like, let's get rid of it. Let's, you know what, it's there, but at the same time, it's like, we know what we are and what we can accomplish, but how long do you let that shelf stay up? And then once you get rid of that shelf, it's like, you go back and like Rhule said, he's literally like, some people are carrying an 0-2. We're carrying an 0-0 going in to try to be 1-0 at this point. And so I think it's, and when he presents that question of what shelf life, okay, how long is that shelf going to stay up? Are you going to let it stay there and you're going to keep going off like, oh, well, we lost our first two? Or are we going to eliminate that shelf and be like, all right, we're 0-0. What can we do now?
It's Joba Chamberlain with us here, Hail Varsity Radio, as we talk some Husker football, and we switch gears now and talk some MLB. As Joba, the playoff race is heating up. I personally think I might have jumped on the Orioles bandwagon for the year. Damn, have they been impressive out there in Baltimore at Camden Yards. Tell me just a little bit about the playoff race and some of the races you're going to be watching over the next couple of weeks as we get ready for October.
I definitely, as an AL East guy, I definitely have jumped on that bandwagon as well. Like, they're fun to see, those guys, Gunnar and Adley and just, Cedric and the guys that they have, seeing if their pitching staff holds up, and I think it will. They've been fun to watch. But I mean, the fun part coming down, there's 2 weeks left. There's 14 games. Some have 15 with some makeups. But I think the fun part is coming down to it. It's who gets hot at the right time. And the fun part about it is who's going to play spoiler, because there's going to be teams that know they're out of it, but the fun part is watching them ruin somebody's season. As that's happened to me as well. It's like, it's fun. It's to watch and it's like, hey, we're not getting to the postseason, but you know what? It's fun to I guess ruin somebody's season. I mean, for lack of a better term. But I just think coming down to it with college football and NFL and the playoffs, and I mean golf, we can even go. We got the Ryder Cup coming up. I mean, there's just so much sports going on that it makes my heart happy, and really looking forward to obviously the postseason. I think it's fun how they changed the wild card and how it's not one game, it's a 2 out of 3, and just how that changes that dynamic. But it's just such a fun time for sports all around.
Joba, how lucky did we get to have, a series like Tampa at Baltimore, as tight as that race is in the East, to have, the deciding series right now. You mentioned there's 14 games left, but you're going to have 3 key ones here for some pole position. I know Tampa's in a great spot wild card wise, but man, they're supposed to crank out 130 wins this year, and they fell off a cliff. Baltimore's been great, to your point, but timing's everything. Are you taking Atlanta versus the field? Would you lay that?
I was doing something the other day. The odds of them getting to, as of right now, is 86%. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's just hard to bet against those dudes. I mean, love watching them play, obviously, as a Braves fan growing up and being a baseball guy. But it's just fun to watch it. And what I love about what baseball is doing, and we've talked about this on the show before, is they're letting kids be the kids, and they're letting them do the things that makes this game fun. But also too, it's and I look at it as a Yankees fan too. They have 7 games against Tampa and the Red Sox coming up. They're 7 back. I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility, but stranger things have happened. In coming back, you get hot at the right time in the last 2 weeks. You've seen what the Rockies did. What was that, the year they got to the World Series?
2007.
They won 21 games in September.
Elijah knows his Rockies history. Part 1 of the doubleheader, it was Boston 5, New York nothing. But you're right. You got time.
Yeah, I mean, and it's running out, but at the same time, it's like when you're playing against those foes and playing against your division, especially coming down to the end, then you got a chance. You hold it, and you play 162 for a reason. Do I think they're going to? I mean, when you have one of the best pitchers in baseball and you can't get him more than 2 runs in how many starts, I mean, it's tough to go about it. But, that's the fun part about what September is. You never know what's going to happen.
Joba, tell me about the AL West. You have 3 teams within 2 games with the Astros, Rangers, and the Mariners. Not asking you to pick a winner, but who are you going to be rooting for down in the AL West? Because that feels like it could be anyone's division.
And I think so, too. Obviously, Max going down hurts. I think, too, the pitching staff from the Rangers side of things is a little depleted. One of my favorite players in the world is literally Michael Brantley. I think he's one of the most underrated hitters in all of baseball. I think he's absolutely fantastic. And that team's fun, too. You got those guys, and you have everything that goes with them. And it's tough to bet on them. I mean, everybody can say whatever they want about hitting trash cans or doing whatever, but at the end of the day, you still got to hit the baseball and do the things that they've done. So you can't take the winning aspect out of it, and they've shown that they can win. And I think from that aspect, I would probably say the Stros.
And what's unique about the Astros, they're much better away from home than they are at home this year. Barely above 500, 38-37 at home, but they're 45-27 on the road. That means that's a team you don't want to play in the postseason.
Well, and that's the same thing when they supposedly were cheating. They had a better record on the road than they did at home anyways. Mm-hmm. So it's like I don't care if you know what's coming. You still got to hit it. You're going to fail 70% of the time and be great. So you know what? Who cares?
Joba Chamberlain. Joba will run you down next week, get some more baseball thoughts, some more Husker football anecdotes, and probably, maybe a little more prime because the world's watching him. And I love the fact you guys were able to connect. Joba Chamberlain. And Joba, always appreciate you giving us some time, brother.
You always got it.
Yep, there is Joba Chamberlain with us here on Hail Varsity, here live at the Single Barrel.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity Radio. We're here at the Single Barrel, till 6, the home football week, Thursdays, where we'll be here at the Single Barrel. And we'll post up on game day Saturdays here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate, 9th and P. Great folks having us out here. Many whiskeys to choose from, plenty of steaks. Your home game hangout, the Single Barrel. So we will check in with Danny Burke. Allegedly, Danny is no doubt picking and choosing where he wants to go in that NFL matchup tonight. We'll ask him the pointed question, minus 11.5, good idea, bad idea, or just bring more whiskey. We bring in Danny Burke at Danny Burke 5 on Twitter's where you find him. Can log on and check out Danny's site, burksbeat.com. Danny, how we doing today?
Fellas, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on as always, and hopefully we have some positivity to actually look forward to this weekend with a nice W for the boys in red after this Saturday. Huh?
And Danny, you told me while you're doing this segment here, you're on hole 18 right now?
Yeah, I am on hole 18 right now, but look, it's no issue. First of all, I always enjoy being on with you guys, and then secondly, it's not been an entertaining round. Well, it's been entertaining for people watching me have some bad shots, but it hasn't been an enjoyable round necessarily for your boys' scorecard. So no issues doing this whatsoever.
So the long and short story is Danny is up in the captain's game on the golf course, and Danny gets free drinks because he is winning the round. Does Nebraska win Saturday? Does Nebraska cover Saturday? Danny, let's start there before some NFL.
Oh, man, I probably have to stray away from actually betting it until I can trust this team a little bit more. So, I mean, you guys understand that side before the conversation about this team covering. But, look, I mean, they did cover the first game of the year, so you got to give credit where credit's due. Second game, I guess, wasn't the most appalling thing to see that come to fruition. But look, against this Northern Illinois team, I was in the press box the last time they came around, and what was unfortunate, or what is unfortunate, is that both my parents went to NIU and some friends, so that wasn't fun the first go-around for myself, but hoping it can be better this time. And, look, let's be honest, it should and it will. I mean, regardless of what the quarterback situation is going to look like, you can design your offense to still move the ball downfield and play to Sim's strengths to where he's not being needed to force the throw. And I know a majority of his problems have also come with just having butterfingers post-snap, but I mean, my goodness, you should think with the home crowd behind his back that he should be able to feel a little bit more sense of calmness and relax and just be able to trust the offensive plays and that the right guys will be in the spots they need to be. And the defense has been solid. Look, they've been doing as much as they can. It's been a bend, don't break because they've been trying to hold on so strong while the offense has been trying to make strides. But, again, this is a ginormous get-right spot for Nebraska, meaning get your mentality in the right place, understand you're still a solid football team just a couple pieces away, and I think they'll be able to manage that this upcoming weekend. And I get that, you know, teams in the past had trouble covering maybe in big spread situations against some of these teams, but I think this team will be fired up, pissed off, ready to put on a show in front of the home crowd. So if I had to, I'd look to laying with the Huskers, but again, fellas, I don't know if I want to put myself through more nonsense than I need to, but that's the way I'd be leaning toward.
It's Danny Burke with us here, Burke's Best Bets on Hail Varsity Radio as we switch gears and talk some NFL. And Danny, let's start off with Thursday Night Football, and I think the question that needs to be asked with the Vikings being the 6-point underdogs is, are you a believer in prime-time Kirk Cousins? There seems to be some magic there, and there's been some late action on the Vikings with some people coming in, according to what I've seen on Twitter, laying some big bets on the Vikings money line. Are you a believer in prime-time Kirk Cousins tonight?
I'm not a believer in them to win outright, but I don't mind taking them with the points. Now, we have to understand the spread was at 7.5 for about the beginning half of this week, so that's crossed over the key number of 7, and like you alluded to, Elijah, now you're seeing it at 6. And I personally don't feel comfortable taking 6 with the Vikings per se at 7 or better. Sure, of course, because that's the most key number there, 7 and 3. So if you had it 7 or 7.5, that was your chance to take it with the Vikings. Now that it's at 6, honestly, the way I would play it would be teasing down the Philadelphia Eagles to just to pick them and look to pair them up with somebody like the Bills this weekend, like the Cowboys, get one of those teams under the key number of 3. But instead of doing anything in that regard, and I tweeted out a full video of this if you want more in-depth analysis, but I took a prop. I took Alexander Madison under 51.5 rushing yards. By the time the video was released, and it may still be there now, 50 in the hook is the number that was available, and I'd still play that. I mean, this Eagles interior is lethal, and they really locked up the running game of the Patriots last week. And if you have the idea that I do, that Philadelphia probably does lead for a majority of this game. Kirk Cousins and company wasn't efficient in the run game against the Bucs last week. Don't think it's going to translate this week. And they'll be trailing, so they'll be needing to throw, implement the play action with Kirk Cousins, get it to your playmakers in Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, and company. And that should be the main focal point. And we saw that happen in this exact matchup last year. The run game was nowhere to be found with Dalvin Cook or Alexander Madison last year. So I think 50.5 is a tad bit too high. I think they're going to be playing keep up, and that's why I think you look to fade the Vikings running back in this situation and take his rushing yards under.
Danny Burke with us, burksbeat.com, and Danny Burke 5 on Twitter. Game of the weekend for me is Kansas City at Jacksonville. Chiefs, a road favorite at -3.5. Man, that was a tough one for them to open things up against Detroit. Did they bounce back? Do you like getting points in Jayville at home?
Oh, man, I hate this game because I love Jacksonville. I love Trevor Lawrence. I like this Jags team a lot. And while I do think this is a good spot for them to cover, I mean, Kansas City, after losing the fashion they did last week, you got to think they come out with intensity. You get Travis Kelce presumably back in the mix, and then Chris Jones finally signed his contract. So the team's going to be looking better, but is that going to be enough? That's the tough part about this. I mean, if you're over the key number of 3, I'd have to go toward the side of Jacksonville if we're just playing the numbers. And because Jacksonville, traditionally with Trevor Lawrence, have actually played this Kansas City team very strongly. So, yeah, if it's over 3, I think you got to look Jacksonville. But, look, if you want a little bit more security, if it does teeter below the key number of 3, maybe you just tease up the Jags from +2.5 to +8.5. But the Jags should give them a hell of a battle here. I think it probably comes down right to the last second. So this one may be more, I mean, as expected, a higher scoring affair. And props could be coming in bountiful amounts. So that may be the the alternative angle to look at. And, maybe that's the best way to go for it. But this one might be the most enjoyable one to watch, that's for sure.
Danny, real quick, do you have a Major League Baseball play tonight?
I got nothing in baseball. I hated the slate, and I hate to say it because usually I come with a baseball play for you guys. But I will give you a couple other angles for football that I'm looking at. Believe it or not, I'm looking to back Elijah's Broncos this weekend against the Commanders, laying 3 in the hook. As gross as that may seem, I think Russ will actually look efficient, and Peyton certainly wins the head coaching battle. So I'm fading Sam Howell, backing Elijah's Broncos this weekend, and then perhaps I was looking at the fade some running. Oh, it was Brian Robinson. Yeah, I think I may fade his rushing yards too. Look to have him have a slow down the ground attack against a really strong defensive interior that the Broncos have as well. So, yeah, all in on the Broncos this weekend, Elijah.
I love it, Danny.
All right.
Last thought here, 10 seconds. Have you taken your Jets under on the season wins totals to the bank yet?
I was feeling okay. It's a terrible way to celebrate, and then they still managed to win. But I can't pout about that too much because of what occurred. But no, crazier things have happened. So still waiting just a little bit.
Danny Burke, BurksBeat.com. Danny, take care. Thanks for the time.
All right, you got it, fellas. Have a good night.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time here inside the Graduate is Hail Varsity Radio at the Single Barrel. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Elijah, are we going to do a steak and a beer tonight with Philly?
It's up to you.
Make that happen. Oh, we're sounding all sorts of confident. Well, it's up to you. I mean, how do you want to handle it? I kind of like...
You're the one who's 2 games in the hole here. You're the one who owes me 2 steaks, so...
Is it 2 or 1?
It depends if you count the Colorado-Nebraska prediction last week as a steak and a beer or not. If not,
did we bet a steak and a beer or no?
You tell me. Maybe we didn't.
I don't believe we did.
Okay, so then it's just 1. It's just 1 so far this NFL season.
I'll lay the points and take Philly.
Oh, 6? Done. I was going to take the Vikings anyway. The Vikings cover a 6-pointer for sure.
So you're going to be watching this. I'll cover. You'll owe me a steak, and there'll be some sort of personal injury you're going to come up with. And I'm going to send you to your friends at Dyer Law. All right? Dyer Law. If you've been hurt in a personal injury accident, you can always count on your friends at Dyer Law, the team to provide you with a helping hand you need no matter what you're dealing with. Call Dyer Law today at 402-393-7529 or visit Dyer.law to chat with a trusted professional about your personal injury claim. Dyer.law, that's Dyer.law, 402-393-7529. Numbers to get in here at 489-1240 as Hail Varsity on the road. I'm thinking I'm having the filet tonight, Elijah.
That would be good for you. I did, in fact, end up having the mac and cheese with hot dogs inside last night, and let me tell you what.
Did you?
Glorious. Loved it.
Did you go Hebrew National? Did you go Fairbury? Did you go Ballpark? What kind of dogs are we talking?
I think they're Johnsonville. I think.
Nice. All right.
I don't know.
You went brats instead of the hot dog.
I think it was hot. It's like the double cheddar hot dog as I was getting into yesterday. It says it's new on the packaging. I'm not sure if it actually has double cheddar, but let me tell you what. Fantastic in the Kraft thick and creamy mac and cheese. I cannot recommend it enough. As for tonight, I'm going to be sticking around here, and I'm going to be doing some high school sports for Thursday for the Thursday night as we have.
Good.
I believe it's Lincoln East taking on Lincoln Northeast tonight. I'm on the production chair, so it might be a Taco Bell kind of night for your boy if I can have some time to get over to Taco Bell before high school football gets kicked off here in about an hour. You are thinking long and hard about all the burritos you're going to hammer. No burritos. No burritos. Here's the thing. No. $1 spicy potato soft taco. It's undefeated at Taco Bell. I've been getting it for years. It's the best dollar item you can get in America right now because dollar menus have gone away. Taco Bell still has the $1 spicy potato soft taco. Highly recommend. All right, tomorrow on the show, we'll spend time with Jacob Padilla. Big recruiting weekend. The pride of Fairbury, Bill Dolman, joins us. Brady Altman's going to check in. And yes, the infamous, the mysterious, the imaginary Clausburn. He'll be back with the Friday forecast
can always get the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play for Hail Varsity Radio, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel, and find us and watch us both ways there. Thanks to everyone who's chimed in on the stream as well. We'll get to more comments tomorrow. Reminder to buckle up. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives. It prevents injuries only if properly worn. Buckle up. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Big thanks to Joba Chamberlain, Gary Barnett, Brandon Vogel, Danny Burke. Talk tomorrow at 4 on Hail Varsity, presented by Currency.